to another episode of Access to Inspiration. If you've ever imagined that sport has the power to overcome trauma, then keep listening, because my guest today is Virginie Goethals. She is the co-founder and managing director of Run. Originally from Belgium, a lawyer, ultra-runner and mother of 3 kids. And I'm fascinated to learn about the non-government organisation that Virginie has set up in Hong Kong. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for having me.
Now, I know you're a co-founder of Run in Hong Kong and an ultra-runner yourself. What is it that you enjoy about running, Virginie?
I love the freedom. I love to let my mind wander. For me, running gives me a sense of peace. And really, it's a way to rest, basically. I love to be in nature as well.
I'm sure many people wouldn't agree that it's a form of rest. They might think it's a form of hard work. When you do ultra running, how long are the types of runs or races that you do?
I've done a lot of distances, from 100k to 100 miles. My last longer run was 300 kilometers, totally self-supported in one go in Hong Kong.
My goodness, how many hours did that take you to do that?
I can't even remember. I didn't really pay attention to that. But I think around 68 hours, 67 hours. There was a lot of incline. And basically the goal of that race, it's called Hong Kong 4 Trails. It's more a challenge than the race. It's to combine the 4 beautiful trails in Hong Kong in one go.
That sounds like an epic challenge. What sort of training do you do to be able to achieve something like that, Virginie?
I do cross training twice a week, and then 1 long run, 1 short run, and hill repeats. So basically training 5 days a week.
So that must take up a lot of time, a lot of focus to be able to do that.
Not that much, because I really love the training. I just, make it happen, fit it in between my work and my family. So I think if you really want to do it, there's always a way, even with a full-time job and a family.
Well, I think you make an important point there about the degree of focus and commitment to do something if you really want to. During the current coronavirus challenge that the world has been facing, how have you managed to keep training, or have you had to be indoors all of the time?
We've been quite lucky in Hong Kong. We haven't been on a government-imposed lockdown. We only had a self-imposed lockdown. At the moment, we cannot gather outside in groups of more than 4. So this has limited sport activities to not more than 4 people. All the governmental tracks have been closed. The gyms have been closed. But it's still possible to sneak into the public parks and go training outside. So basically, if you want to make it happen, you can still make it happen, but there's no access to any kind of gym or weight training at the moment. I've just continued my training. I did some workouts online, and I just came back from 2 hours of hill repeats just now. So yeah, just try to keep normal. And I think running is a great way also to have some normality in the middle of this health crisis.
So it's really benefiting your mental state as well as your physical fitness.
Definitely. Hong Kong has a very large running and hiking community, and people are still running and hiking more than ever.
Well, it was through a running acquaintance of ours, Colin, that connected us in the first place. And now I know he mentioned, and I said in the outset, that you're originally from Belgium, Virginie. What took you to Hong Kong originally?
I moved to Asia 10 years ago. So I first moved from Brussels to Beijing. Originally, we had to move from Brussels to California. But then 1 month before the departure, my husband told me, okay, no, it's China. So I'd never been to China. I went on a quick 2-day visit just to have a look, because my kids were still very young. I had 3 kids under 4 years old. When we left, I couldn't see anything of Beijing because there was a massive sandstorm. So I just went back to Belgium and just accepted that I would see Beijing as a surprise. So I spent more than 4 years in Beijing and really loved it. And I was working in Beijing as well. And then my husband got transferred to Hong Kong. Basically, we asked to leave Beijing because of the pollution. We didn't know the long-term impact on the health of very young kids, and we're a little bit uncomfortable. So we moved to Hong Kong. And we've been in Hong Kong now for 5 years and a half and really love it.
I have to laugh when you say that you were originally heading for California and then ended up in China. As long as a place begins with the letter C, you're quite happy to go there.
Exactly. Let's see what comes next. So
now, I know you're the co-founder and managing director of Run. So tell us about what it does and what gave you the idea to start it up in the first place.
Run's mission is to rebuild the lives of vulnerable refugees, mainly women, through sport and education. So Run stands for more than running. It stands for rebuild the lives of vulnerable refugees, unite them as a community and with a local community. And the N stands for nurture. So the goal is to nurture refugees back into a more hopeful future. The idea of run is that basically sport is more than a leisure activity. It's a basic human right to which everyone is entitled, especially women. We mainly focus on women at Run because we think that a lot of women don't have access to sport for cultural reasons, due to the family duties, or for religious reasons. So we try to give them a chance to do sport, to discover sport, to enhance their physical and mental strength, and at the same time get a chance to continue their studies or start studies so that they have a better chance at restarting a new life. The women with whom we work at Run are almost all victims of sexual violence. So doing sport for them is a very big step after what they've been through.
How did you identify there was a need to develop this non-government organisation in the first place, this NGO?
It happened all very randomly. As often in life takes you to very funny places. So originally I was a lawyer. I worked in green tech. When I moved to Hong Kong, I wanted to go back to law, had applied to in a couple of law firms. But then just before World Refugee Day, one of my friends, who was a human rights lawyer, asked me to organize a hike for an NGO called Justice Center. That NGO provides amazing legal support to vulnerable refugees in Hong Kong. So I went in June with a lady that I didn't know. Her name is Brenda Sawyer. So we went together, organized that one hike for 13 women who were victims of sexual violence. And at the end of the hike, the lady said, "See you next week." And we're still there 5 years later. And together with Brenda, we founded Run.
So out of that first experience, it gave you the impetus to keep going?
Yes.
How does your training as a lawyer help you in the work that you do within Run?
I think my training as a lawyer gives me a lot of flexibility to address very large variety of issues that the women faces. So often when we meet the women, their biggest worry is the legal aspect of their case. I'm not a lawyer approved to practice in Hong Kong, but I did quite a bit of refugee law and also some work with with women who are victims of domestic violence in the past. So I'm able basically to advise them about refugee law and orient them to lawyers, to other NGOs, for example, Justice Center Hong Kong, who can assist them with their legal procedures. Also, for example, today we had a woman come in who is a victim of domestic violence, and I can immediately explain to her what the steps are for her legal protection if she decides to take those steps.
So your ability to be clear and have some sort of procedure or advisory capacity to help these women, it sounds like it's quite important as a strength that you bring to the organisation.
Yes, but our goal is not to provide legal support. Our mission is really to provide trauma intervention. The legal support or the legal advice that we can provide them is just a bonus. And like I often say at Run, we're a small NGO. It's about cleaning toilets, baking cakes, providing legal support, holding hands, cry together, run together. It's really a little bit of everything.
It does sound like it. Now, I know that your grandfather has a special place in your heart when you think about Run, because he was a refugee himself. What is it about his experience that you relate to and is so important to you?
My grandfather was an amazing man. He came from Hungary and fled to Belgium in 1956. He was a refugee in Belgium for about 30 years. So it took him a lot of time to obtain status in Belgium. And my grandfather was also very heavily traumatized because he spent many, many years in a Russian gulag. He never had any chance to have mental support to overcome his trauma. He was an amazing man, spoke many languages, led a very simple and humble life because of the hardships he had to overcome. To me, he's really an inspiration for my work every day. When he was still alive, I never thought he would have such a big impact on me.
So it sounds like that first-hand experience you had via your grandfather of how he coped was really useful when it came to the opportunity to set up Run.
Definitely. I didn't have to think twice. It was something that I had to do.
Absolutely. Now, I know there is proven research to show that the power of sport can help to overcome trauma. How does that work? Why is it that helping people to have some form of exercise really can help them mentally?
In fact, exercise has a very quick effect on the brain. When you go running, your endorphins go up, and the endorphins are your happy hormone. If you exercise regularly, it's a good way to stay happy, stay in a happy place in your brain. And also when you exercise, even very mild exercise, your cortisol levels, that's your stress hormone levels, they go down. Refugees face a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. a lot of PTSD, and very simple exercise. Just spending some time in nature really helps to get them in a happy place. Long-term research also shows that exercise has a very positive effect on your brain serotonin. So it helps to basically rewire the brain and overcome trauma as long as you exercise on a regular basis. The research is still very preliminary, but there are very strong signs about sport as a way to overcome trauma. So what we try to teach them is exercise regularly, take care of yourself. Hiking and running are cheap sports. You can do them anywhere in any country. You just need shoes and some hills or just a flat road and off you go. So we try to give them a tool, a self-care tool, basically through running and hiking.
Imagine a refugee arrives in Hong Kong and they're not aware of your organisation. How do they learn about it? And then where do they get the shoes and the equipment to be able to go out and participate in what you offer?
Very sadly, at the moment, we only offer support to 150 refugees and asylum seekers at the moment. So 2/3 of these are women and the rest are children. And we also have about 22 men of who we take care. Those men are victims of torture. We have a very long waiting list. So refugees and asylum seekers get referred to us by other NGOs who serve refugees. And basically, they're also frontline NGOs, including the Hong Kong government also refers refugees and asylum seekers to us, as well as UNHCR. And we take in the most vulnerable. When they come to run, we provide them with shoes, with T-shirts, with shorts, so that they can go running. We collect a lot secondhand, and we also get a lot of donations from sport shops. So most of the time we're able to provide them a new pair of shoes. And we also collect some secondhand T-shirt, shorts that we're able to provide them. You don't need much, when backpacks are very cheap, we also collect them. It's just very easy to set them up and send them out hiking and running with our volunteers.
So that was going to be my next question is, who do they go with and how far do they go in their first experience with you?
We have different groups. Our entry group is a women-only hiking group. It's a very safe environment where we have absolutely no men. So we organize breakfast for the ladies in the morning because a lot of them don't have enough funds to pay for food, to pay for 3 meals a day. They survive on 40 Hong Kong dollars in food per day. So that's about $5, which is almost nothing in one of the most expensive cities in the world. So they arrive in our space in the morning. They will have breakfast. They will leave their kids in childcare. We have some childcare volunteers. Often the moms also don't have a husband. 60% are alone with their children. So they leave their kids in childcare and then they're off. They go to the trails. We have different levels. If someone just joins run, she will go in an entry-level group. So do more like easy hiking, quite flat hiking. And then we will steadily increase the difficulty. So usually we have about 2 to 3 different hiking levels on that same day that the women can join. Sometimes someone will do a more difficult hike and go over mountains in Hong Kong that are called the twins. So they will do a double twins. But on the other day, you might feel really down and only feel like doing a flat hike, which is fine. In the summer, we also love to combine hiking and just finish at the beach, have a splash there, and then just go back to the office for lunch. So we try to be creative and play with what we have here in Hong Kong to recharge their batteries. Once they're more comfortable in the women hiking group, they can move back into a mixed gender environment, which can be challenging, especially for women who are victims of sexual violence. So we have a running group once a week. It's a group of 50 refugees. 2/3 are women, and their teenage kids are also allowed to join. To coach session on the track. It's quite a lot of sessions, but again, in that group, we also have different levels. It's professionally coached by a coach called Charlotte Cutler, who is very well known in Hong Kong. She's very good at cracking the whip, but they all love it.
So there's a structured approach to how people can participate in the activities that go on. What does it give you, Virginia? What sort of sense of pleasure, perhaps, what do you get out of setting this up and seeing it flourish?
It's definitely a very tough program, because we face so much hopelessness, depression. A lot of them are at risk of self-harm as well. But I love to see them grow. I love to hit the top of a mountain with them and see how happy they are, how proud they are of themselves, which is really a big thing. I love to see them smile. You don't need much to transform someone. You just need a helping hand, some running shoes, some good teachers who give them English classes, computer classes, access to online education. Basically, you give them dignity, and it has a massive snowball effect. So basically just the happiness, the smiles on their face, which are amazing. We had this one lady who come from East Africa, very, very sad case. She arrived as a minor refugee in Hong Kong, has been through horrendous experience, the worst you can imagine. And a couple of months ago, she was running on the track, which for her is a big thing to be back in a mixed gender environment. And one man who was running in the wrong direction of the track bumped into her. And the man didn't see anything. And she caught up with the man and told him, "You say sorry. You bumped into me. You say sorry. I just want to hear the sorry." And her English is still a little bit broken, but I was so proud of her that she went to that man and said in a nice way, "I want you to apologize because you hurt me." And the man apologized. I think he was just caught into his running and didn't notice that he really elbowed her quite hard. But it's this kind of strength that really makes me happy, where those women can stand up for themselves and take ownership of their lives.
So you're really describing very well the sense of dignity and self-respect that they regain from the experience of running and walking and being in a supportive environment as well, I imagine.
The ladies also participate in races in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has an amazing running community. It's extremely supportive of refugees and asylum seekers, and we would never have been able to be where we are without them. So we participate in 5K races to 100K races. And the first time I asked the ladies who wants to do a 100K race, a few hands came into the air, and those were not our best runners. But those women had all the determination that was needed to finish such a race. And they finished it like for 2 years in a row now. And in the beginning, when I was signing them up, people told me, "Why are you doing this? Those ladies cannot do this. This is too much. The disappointment is going to be massive." And I said, "No, they will learn so much just from the training. It's going to be worth the experience." And those ladies did a fantastic job. And now they're totally hooked.
So your ultra distance community is expanding.
Yeah.
I can get the sense of passion that you have, Virginia, from how you're talking about the work that is being done. What do you think are the qualities that you bring to the operation? We've talked already about what you bring as a lawyer. I'm just wondering what else are some of those strengths that enable you to flourish in that environment yourself?
I'm very stubborn.
That's important.
I don't know if that's a quality or not, but I try to see it as a quality, meaning that when something is not possible, I will try to do it.
You'll find a way to overcome the obstacle and get around it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the plans for the future? Where do you see this organization developing as it goes along?
We hope to be able to offer more spots in the future to women who need support. We're slowly expanding our program. We don't want to lose the community aspect that this program has. Since last year, we've also built a very good relationship with organizations in Canada. And we hope to be able to send more of our participants to Canada through community sponsorship. Refugees and asylum seekers are indeed stuck in Hong Kong because Hong Kong has not signed the UN Refugee Convention. So even once they obtain status, they need to wait many, many years to be able to be resettled. Only 1% of them will be resettled according to UNHCR statistics. So through community sponsorship in Canada, we're able to send families and single women with children and some single men to Canada. This year, we hope to be able to send about 17 of them and hopefully more next year. I think this is the way to go in the future. And it's also the way that UNHCR is promoting for refugees, basically relying on local communities to take in refugees and asylum seekers, because we need local partnerships to improve the lives of those who need it the most. We cannot just rely on governments, especially now with COVID-19, if the governments are totally stretched and overwhelmed, and it's up to local communities to step up.
It sounds like such a worthwhile cause that you're involved in there, Virginia. Is that your full-time activity? And obviously you've got 3 children. What else do you spend your time doing?
It's a more than full-time activity. Besides running and my family, I love cooking. I'm trying to be a vegan, but for the moment it's being vegan with a twist, like my friends say. And I love reading as well, and just taking hikes with my family, for basically very simple things.
I think you're giving us the sense that simplicity and being back to nature and being in that environment and having support around you is really all you need to flourish as a human being, to have that dignity and self-respect.
Exactly.
Well, it's been great to talk to you today, Virginia. How will people be able to find you on social media and on the internet if they're interested to find out more?
Our website is runhk.org. You can find us there. And our link to Instagram and Facebook is on our website.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put a link to that on the show notes from our conversation today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks very much, Sue.
I hope you enjoyed hearing from Virginie Goethals about the work her organisation is doing to support refugees in Hong Kong. I find it amazing that in one of the world's most populated cities, there is space for people to enjoy the outdoors, which can have such a positive difference on their physical and mental well-being. Next week, I'll be speaking to David Liebnow about why we need heart and courage at times of uncertainty. I hope you will join us then.